So we will be creating the KeyCap Fidget in this video. As we have done with all of the other levels, we are going to start on our dashboard. So if you aren't there, you can go ahead and click the Onshape logo in the top left. Your dashboard might look very different than mine. As long as you have this Create button right here, you'll be fine. So we're going to hit Create and then Document. We're going to call this KeyCap Fidget, and then we can go ahead and hit Create. Once your workspace is loaded, we can go ahead and start creating this fidget. I'm going to be using the pre-made KeyCap Fidget as kind of a reverse engineer so that we can look at all of the different sketches and extrusions that we're going to have to make here. So if I go over to sketch 1 and we double click, you can see here the actual sketch that I used to create the first layer. So we're going to be doing a square by 0.868. So if we go to our document, we can hit sketch, and we're going to click here in the front plane. We're going to change our view over to the front, and then we're simply going to grab our rectangle tool. So I'm going to click, I'm going to come down to the origin and click once, and we're not clicking and dragging. I'm going to come up and click again. At this point we have the square for the beginning, but we do need to make it perfect by using the dimension tool. So the dimension tool is right here. We're going to click, and we're going to come down, and we're simply just going to click on the top line here once. I'm not dragging, I'm just going to come up and I'm going to click again. It's going to ask us for what dimension we are looking at. So we're going to do 0.868 and hit enter. And we're going to do the same thing on the left side here. We're just going to click on the line and come over, click again, and we have 0.868. And once again we can hit enter. So we have our kind of perfect square here to start off with. We're actually done with this first sketch, so we're going to come up and just click on the green check mark. Now, to make this a little bit easier to kind of view and see, we're going to come to our view cube. We're going to click in the corner right here, this right corner, and that's going to bring us back to the isometric view. Now, if we go back to our original, we can get out of that and we can actually find our first extrusion. So I'll double click there, and you can see that I have extruded this at 0.689. These are all very, very specific dimensions, by the way. If you are slightly off, the fidget actually won't function the way we want it to. So we're gonna extrude it at 0.689. So I'll come back, I'm gonna hit my extrusion, and we're going to click there. So it's 0.689, and we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark. For our next portion here, we're going to need to hollow out the KeyCap Fidget. So to do that, we can hit the sketch button in the top left, and we're just going to go ahead and click on the front portion here. Be careful that you don't accidentally click on this other plane, right? So you might want to move around and just make sure that you are in fact drawing on the front of this. So if that didn't work for you, you can go ahead and hit the X button on the sketch. That will delete it. You can hit the sketch and make sure that you're actually clicking right on the front there. So I am kind of sketching in the correct location. I can change my view on the view cube to the front view once again. We can go back to our original, and we'll take a look at our sketch 2. So I'm going to double click here, and we have a little bit more elaborate dimensions to take a look at this time. So we are going to draw a square inside of the square essentially, and then we're going to add in all of these dimensions to make sure it's kind of perfectly centered. So we'll start with the square, and that's 0.788. So we'll go back, we can hit our rectangle tool, and we're just going to kind of click and click. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it's too small, it's fine. If it's a little too big, it's fine. We're going to use the dimension tool to make it perfect. So we can start by using this 0.788 dimension on both sides. So I'll click the dimension tool here, and I'll click on the top, and we will click the dimension at 0.788, and we'll hit enter. Now, if this is off of your original KeyCap Fidget, like if it's coming off, it's fine. We can go ahead and try and fix that with the other dimensions. If it's a little too off, you can go ahead and hit the undo button a couple times and redraw your square so it's not falling off the original. We're going to go ahead and do our dimension tool on the left side here. So we're going to click, and we now have a 0.788 dimension once again. So it does look kind of almost centered, but with this particular design and for it to function, we need it to be absolutely perfect. So we do have a couple more dimensions here that we're going to have to add in. You can see that we've spaced this on the inside of the original cube at 0.04. So we kind of just have to go around and do all those dimensions. So we're going to make sure our dimension tool is selected. This is where it becomes a little bit more confusing. So follow along. We're going to click here, and we're going to click on the side, click, and we're going to come up and out. Again, we're not clicking and dragging. This is a total of 3 different clicks, and we can do 0.04 inches, and I'm going to hit enter. I can do the same for the top, so I'll click here, I'll click here, and I'll click here. That's 0.04. And then we can add in the other dimensions if we want to, but they are actually already going to be kind of determined by the fact that this original cube is a certain distance. We've told it it's 0.04 here, it's 0.783 here. So this, if I click and I go up and I click again, it should already be 0.04 once again. And we can do the same on the bottom. So click and over, that should be 0.04. So if those are grayed out, these 2 dimensions, you actually did something that you needed to do that was necessary to show us that that dimension is in fact stuck. So that's great. We're done with this sketch, and we're going to go ahead and hit the check mark button once again. Now if we go back to our original, we can also hit the check mark, and I can go to extrude 2. I'm going to just simply see how far we have extruded this in. So this was extruded at 0.235. So if I hit the extrude button and I click on the center here, we do want to hit remove, and we're going to come down, and we're doing that at 0.235. So 0.235, hit enter, and if you hit the check mark, you should have something that looks like this. Now our next step is to add in the recess on the bottom here so that the actual switch from a keyboard can fit exactly and perfectly inside, and that way we can install a keycap on top of it. So I can come over, and we're going to find sketch 3 here, and once again we have a lot of dimensions to put in, and these dimensions have to be absolutely perfect for the KeyCap Fidget to function. So we're going to go back to ours, and we're going to hit the sketch button. Once again, you need to be very careful about where you're putting the sketch. It needs to be on the inside of the keycap, so you can see it's like highlighting the bottom there. I want to make sure I'm clicking on that portion. So if I just move my view, you can see we've kind of put a piece of paper all the way on the inside. I'll go back to the front view. We'll zoom in a little bit. Don't forget you can use your mouse wheel as a button to scroll and kind of pan so that it's in the center. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool here, and I'm simply just going to draw a rectangle on the inside. Now we're going to have to add in our dimensions. So if we go back, we can see that the square itself is 0.55 inches on both sides. So we can start there. I'm going to hit the dimension tool. I'm going to click on the top of the square, and I'm going to come up and I'm going to click again, and we're doing that at 0.55, and we'll hit enter. Now we're also going to do the same on this side. So if I click and I click, this is 0.55 and enter. So now all that's left is just centering this square inside of the other square, essentially, and that's kind of creating the distances between the top and the side. So if we come over, we can see I did that at 0.12. So I'm going to make sure my dimension tool is selected. I'm going to click on the left side here. I'm going to click on the inside portion, this line right here. I'm going to come up, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to make sure that's exactly 0.12. I can hit enter. And then finally, I can take a look here, and I'm going to click once and come over, and this is also going to be 0.12. So just to make sure that we have everything that we need, we're all set. We have our 4 dimensions here. We can hit the green check mark. The next step is to actually extrude remove this in, creating that recess for the actual switch, like I mentioned. So we can hit the extrude button. We'll come down, and we're going to select this little square on the inside. Once again, we want to make sure that we're hitting remove. And for that exact extrusion, we can come back to our OG, and we can see that it is 0.353. So this is 0.353. We're going to hit enter and hit the check mark. We are very, very close to actually completing our KeyCap Fidget. The only thing that we're missing at this point is a couple of different fillets, and to make sure that we have this portion here attached so that we can attach a wrist lanyard to it. So if we come down, we can find that the next step is to add in these rounded corners to kind of give this a little bit more of an aesthetic, and we can see that we did that at 0.05. So we'll come back to ours. In the top left, you should be able to find this tool here, the fillet tool. We're going to click on the fillet tool and come down. Now, when you're selecting your edges, you need to make sure you're not selecting the whole side. You want to just kind of click on this one line right here. And you can see I already have it set to 0.05, but if yours is not, hit 0.05 and then hit enter. Don't forget you can use your mouse on the right click button. If you click that down and hold it, you can change the view. So I can click on this edge there, I can click on this edge there, and I can click on this edge there. Now, if you accidentally click on something different, right, and you need to kind of start over, you can come find over on this section. It says entities to fillet. You can come find the one that you accidentally clicked on, and you can hit the X button and get rid of it, or you can just X out of the whole thing and kind of just start over. Once you have all 4 of those selected at 0.05 for the radius, we're going to hit the check mark. So the last step is adding this attachment on the bottom. We're going to double click here on Sketch 4 and see where this is at. Now you notice this drawing, I did start all the way on the bottom. We're not drawing on the top, we're not drawing on any of the recesses. We're actually drawing right where we started the first extrusion. So if we go to ours and we kind of zoom out and center, we're going to click the sketch button. And this time, instead of clicking anywhere on the object, we're actually just going to start by clicking on the front plane. That front plane is where we started, so I'm going to click, and now your piece of paper should be all the way at the back of the fidget. I can still hit the front view on my cube so that we can kind of get a better idea of what we're doing, and we'll take a look at what we're drawing. It's basically a rectangle, and we're just going to add in a couple dimensions. So if I come back to mine, I can click our rectangle tool here, and I can come down. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to make sure you're connecting it with this line. So make sure it's yellow before you click. You're going to click once, you kind of come up, and you're going to click again. Again, if it's not perfect, it's okay. We're going to use the dimension tool to make it perfect. So our first one we can do is this 0.2 dimension. So if I click on my dimension tool here, I'm just simply going to click on the right side, click once and come out, click again. Again, we're not dragging, so that was 0.2 inches, and we'll hit enter. Now mine shifted over like this, and it might not look the same on yours, and that is okay. We're still going to use the dimension tool to make it perfect. So at this point we have a 0.25 and a 0.25 on both sides. So we'll come back, dimension, we're going to click on this line, and then we're going to come down and click on the outside of our fidget, and then we're going to come up and click again. That was 3 clicks. So I'm going to do 0.25 inches. And I can do the same over here. So if I click here, and I click on the side, and I come up, and we're going to do 0.25 inches. So it should look something like that. We are all set at this point for our extrusion. So we're going to hit the green check mark, finish that off. I can move my view a little bit with the right mouse, or I can use the view cube in the top to go back in our isometric view. Now the last portions here, we do need to extrude this up. So we can take a look at extrude 4. I did this at 0.15 inches. So if you hit the extrude button, we can click on this portion here, and you can see it's extruding way farther than we need to. So I'm going to take the depth, and I'm just going to type in 0.15. I'm going to hit enter, and we can hit the check mark. So we have made an attachment on the top for the wrist lanyard. We're just missing a couple other details here. We need a hole, and we need to make some fillets. So the last steps, we're going to double click so I can see here on sketch 5, we're going to make sure that this hole here is set in the center. And you can see I did this actually in a different way by using points, which I'll show you in a second. But this is a 0.125 hole. So if we go back, we're going to hit our sketch button here. Now again, be very careful about where you're drawing. You cannot draw just anywhere here. You have to make sure you're selecting this exact portion. So if I click on that and you change your view again, you can see the piece of paper is right on the top there, which is what we want. I'll zoom in and I'll change this. I am going to hit the circle tool. Now, instead of adding in a bunch of dimensions to make this perfect, there is another method. Once you have the circle tool selected, you can actually come down. We're not clicking on anything. We're just going to highlight this line until we find this little square, right? And then, again, I'm not clicking. I'm just going to come down and hover my mouse on this line until we find this square. Now, once you're lined up here, if you move your mouse over, Onshape is going to automatically recognize that you're trying to put that in the center. And if you get to a certain spot, both of those are going to align all of a sudden. I didn't click anything. I wasn't clicking and dragging. I'm just hovering my mouse. Now that they're both aligned, I can start my circle and I can bring it out. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see these two little dots. That means that we did the right thing. I'm going to use my dimension tool. I'm going to click on the outside of the circle here, right on the actual circle itself. I'm going to click once, not clicking and dragging. I'm going to come out and click again. This dimension is 0.125, and we will hit enter. Once again, we're all set with our sketch. We can hit the green check mark, and we can finally extrude this away. So we're going to hit the extrude button. Make sure that you're selecting just the circle, not the outside. You're selecting just the circle. We're going to hit the remove button. And because we're not doing anything behind the cube here, there's nothing else to extrude remove into, we can just leave this at 1 and hit the check mark. We are on our final steps, friends. To create our KeyCap Fidget, we're just going to add in a couple more aesthetic fillets. So we're going to hit the fillet tool here. We're going to come down and once again make sure that you are clicking on the exact right place. We don't want to click on the actual sides. We're trying to just get this line right here. So if I click there, I move my mouse over, I'm going to use the right mouse, and I can hold it down and change the view, and I can go ahead and click on the other side. We are going to in fact leave these at 0.05. So if we double click on the OG, you can see 0.1 actually. So if we go back, we can change that to 0.1, hit enter, and then we're going to hit the check mark. Take a look. You have now officially created your KeyCap Fidget. It is not required at this point, but if you do intend on 3D printing your KeyCap Fidget, you are going to have to create an STL file, and then you're going to need to upload that STL file to the appropriate place on Google Classroom. Just as a reminder, to make an STL file, you can come down to the bottom left where it says Part Studio 1. You're going to right click, or on your Chromebook that is using 2 fingers to tap, you're going to hit export. This window is going to pop up. If this is your first time creating an STL file, this format is not going to say STL. You're going to go ahead and need to click, scroll all the way down to the bottom and hit STL. File name is going to be the KeyCap Fidget, and at this point you can go ahead and hit export. That STL file will go to your downloads folder. On Google Classroom, you will need to follow directions and go to the Google Classroom assignment. You can hit File, Upload, go to the Downloads folder, find your STL file. You'll upload it to Google Classroom, and then you can bring it into the Make Room. Happy printing, everybody. Enjoy.